Hi, everybody. Good morning, and welcome to another edition of the Cronin Challenge2Change. You know, we've been through a lot together. This has been over 3 months now, and we're going strong, stronger than ever. And we've brought to you some amazing guests and some wonderful knowledge to empower you, to inform you, to keep your spirits high during this pandemic and this so unusually crazy time. Never in my life have I seen such a time like this. And so I just want everybody to know that we're here for you. The Cronin Law Firm is here for you. We're bringing to you some advice, some guidance, and I'm so excited for our guest today. You know, last week we talked a lot about emotional well-being during this COVID and stay-home order. So many people have suffered from an emotional standpoint, a psychological standpoint, and you know, I thought it was very important also to bring someone to talk to you about your physical health and your physical well-being. During this pandemic and the stay-home orders, so many people forgot about taking care of themselves. They forgot about doing their daily rituals, working out, or it was just too hard for them. They were just too stressed, too many things going on, whether it was from homeschooling their children, you know, to not being able to go out, just a myriad of problems and things. But here with us today is such an amazing, world-renowned cardiologist, Dr. Joel Kahn. He is a holistic cardiologist who has paved the way for so many new ideas. He's the author of so many books, and I am so pleased and honored to bring him to you today to speak to you about your overall health and well-being. Hi, Dr. Kahn. How are you?
Well, thank you. And honestly, what you're doing, number one, when you said you've never seen this in your whole life and you're only 29 years old, you have to take a little respect for the elderly people like me that are over 60. But I've never seen a time like this before. But, you know, what you're doing right now and with your series is so important because part of immunity is keeping your spirits up, staying connected, being positive, having an outlook, having hope, having purpose, and knowledge can help. And we'll talk about some knowledge today. So I'm excited to be here.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to have you. Dr. Kahn, in your short, young life, you have accomplished so much. So can you tell our viewers today a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. I am a local product. I grew up in Oak Park in Southfield. 1977, went to Ann Arbor for my undergraduate and medical degree. I was in a combined program where you got it done in 6 years, go blue.
Wow. That was the Interflex program, wasn't it?
Interflex, you got it. Yeah, that was the fifth year of a flexi. It was made for me because I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a heart doctor since I've been about 10. And Ann Arbor was awesome. I stayed for residency. I took, by that point, wife and one child to Dallas, Texas for 3 years to do some really wonderful cardiology training. And second son was born there and then moved to Kansas City to do a year of, if you're having a heart attack, I wanted to be your guy when I came back to Michigan. I wanted to be the angioplasty king, which I did train to be, and moved back in 1990. And I've been here, so it's 30 plus years of practicing in, you know, southeastern Michigan, a little bit in Ann Arbor, now all in, you know, I'm in Bingham Farms with a clinic, and I've transitioned, just to finish about me, from all hospital, all emergency, all I want you when you're almost dead and I'll help you get better, to now I do only preventive cardiology. I didn't give up on the other stuff, but I really developed a real interest and a real passion. Can we find people 10 years before a heart attack, before bypass, before they die, and get rid of the disease, figure out why, change lifestyle, use natural approaches. And it's been so wonderful. So I still go to the hospital, but more of a guest. And, you know, you're allowed to recreate yourself. In the process, I've written 6 books. I've had many, many national TV appearances, Dr. Show, Larry King Live,
You're regular on Dr. Oz. Yeah.
Rogan, Dr. Oz. It's been fun to have that impact. I write books and articles and got a podcast, Heart Doc VIP, and a brand new little TV show. So I'm busy, fired by just energy to try and make the world or one person a little bit healthier, a little bit better.
Well, Dr. Kahn, let's talk a little bit about the beginning. When you were in medical school, I mean, you graduated the top of your class, summa cum laude, just a little achiever, right?
You didn't know that.
And from there, you're triple board certified. What compelled you? Why did you want to be board certified in 3 different areas of medicine? And how does it help you today?
Yeah, it sounds good, and it is a lot of testing and certification to get to that point. But, in my field, you have to become an internal medicine specialist, so that's a board. Then you have to become a cardiologist, that's a board. Then if you're experienced in the cath lab, that's a board. It's sort of like taking bar in 3 different states. It lasts for a while and all. I do, by the way, have one of my 3 children as a litigation attorney and in Detroit and in California. So I love the lawyers. But anyway, I'm 61, and I mean, I don't want to go a day without learning something new, and usually something that I can use and translate into educating a patient about one more new thing.
That's amazing. And now, what though compelled you? Why did you want to go from saving lives and after the fact, now being more preventive? There's a switch there. When in your career did you say, hey, wait a minute, I can make a difference before it becomes so acute?
Yeah. It wasn't disappointment with the system, although I'll tell you, get a second opinion. Anything you're doing elective, get a second opinion, and look for a natural alternative. There won't always be one. We need surgeons, we need procedural doctors, CAT scans and MRIs, but we use them way too much because we don't talk to people about the fact that the majority of the diseases that rob people of the quality of their life and quantity of their life are lifestyle related. Not all. Genetics play a factor. Bad luck plays a factor. But 75, 80% of your risk of getting cancer, heart disease, Alzheimer's, diabetes type 2, and even some autoimmune diseases of the thyroid are related to what you eat and your fitness and your sleep and your environment, clean water, clean air. And it may take a lot of work to recreate and get a cleaner house to live in without mold or without plastics. It may take a little work to know how to make new recipes. And it does take commitment to get to your home gym or your backyard or a regular gym, most days of the week without excuse. And all these things are hard, but they're much better than being on 7 medications with 3 operations and just feeling bad every day. So I just kind of knew that was there. And then I found mentors. So it's that classic, if I see further than most, it's because I stand on the shoulders of giants. There really are giants out there. And we just need a whole lot more. So I volunteered for the natural military service in medicine.
It's amazing, Dr. Kahn, what you were saying about all of these diseases. You're a cardiologist, but all of these other diseases, Alzheimer's and everything else, is really preventative mostly. I know not always, but typically, a lot of people don't realize that. And you're talking about cleaner living. I know you are a vegan. So, there's some discussion between whether human beings should be more plant-based in terms of their diet, but because the other argument is, well, we have incisors and we have our teeth.
You only got 4 of them, 4 out of 32. That's
right. So
one,
that
one
the
on
case,
your plate.
So why don't you explain to our viewers, why do you believe a plant-based diet is so much better for our health?
Yeah. And you're right. A coincidence of going from living in Southfield to Ann Arbor in 1977 was I stopped eating all the gray meat in the dorm and started eating only the salad bar. It was a lot of reasons. It wasn't a picky kind of thing. They had an amazing salad bar. Ann Arbor had this great restaurant called the Pretzel Bell with an amazing salad bar my parents liked. And I just haven't eaten chicken or beef or turkey for 43 years before most of the data was in. But as the data started to come in, I obviously paid a little more attention than the average medical student, resident, and doctor, because I had made this decision with my wife long ago, and we gave our kids any option they wanted other than just pure junk. And 2 of the 3 in high school gravitated to, super clean diets. And the 3rd one eats paleo, super clean, but he's still a little stuck on chicken in the gym, and we love him. He's the attorney, obviously, the one who wanted to resist. But it's, I'll just throw out 3 little data points because this is a message the audience needs to hear. I'd say 6 years ago, two big studies in the Netherlands and Sweden were reported. We got 20,000 people in each study, so 40,000. They're totally healthy, no heart disease, but we're going to track them for 20 years, ask them all kinds of questions, and see if we can predict who can survive 20 years, no heart attack. Turns out, what do you got to do to survive 20 years, no heart attack? It was actually 85% chance of not having a heart attack compared to the others. So if you want to drop your risk of heart attack by 85%, listen up. So you're going to not be blown away by this. One, don't smoke. Number two, fitness 30 minutes a day. Any kind you want, 30 minutes a day. And if you have to break it up, break it up. Number three, keep your waistline thin. Under 40 inches for a guy. It's not an incredibly hard goal. Under 35 inches for a woman. Thinner is better because that little bulge around the belly creates a whole host of diseases we've learned. Number four showed up on the radar screen is get 7 hours of sleep, not 4 hours of sleep. At least work hard to get that. Number five was eat more fruits and vegetables than the average American. The average American is about 1.5 servings a day, so that's not hard at all, but get 5 or 6. And then finally, and oddly, hooray for this, a glass of wine a day showed up as a positive predictor of avoiding heart attack. So 6 data points, not that hard. Now, let me fast forward. That was data from Europe. About 2 years ago, the Harvard School of Public Health, they have this enormous database that works the same way. 130,000 doctors and nurses, all healthy. Let's follow you for 25, 30 years, ask you so many questions you can't stand filling out the forms, but you do. What predicted living a decade longer than the average American? Don't smoke, regular fitness, tons of fruit and vegetables, keep your body thin, get sleep at night, and a glass of wine a day showed up. Now, I'm not trying to encourage anybody who doesn't drink, has a reason not to drink, has a predilection or choice not to, but it's amazing it shows up. These are called multivariate analysis. There's 100 data points, and the 5 strongest ones are what they put into a little program. And finally, just in the last 2 weeks, out of Chicago, Rush University, came a study on your risk of Alzheimer's. A lot of us really fear, what if we begin to lose our memory and our quality of life goes really down, because there is no treatment for Alzheimer's. Prevention, there is. Treatment right now, there is none. 5 things were identified in this Chicago study of 4,000 people. Eat a lot of fruit and vegetables, walk every day, don't smoke. A glass of wine a day showed up in that study too. I hate that, but it did. And actually do some mental exercises, Sudoku puzzles, learn a new language, read books, just stay engaged, not watching the boob tube all the time. So there's such a commonality. We can talk about the exact same list for dropping your risk of developing type 2 diabetes. A lot of that's related to weight and visceral fat, abdominal fat, your waistline. It's better to carry a little extra weight in your rear end than it is around the belly. We could talk about breast cancer. We come up with the same list. The body responds really well. They're just paying attention to those 5, 6, 7 common data points. And it is known, just to answer your question, you can eat a largely plant-based diet. If anybody wants to see the best example out there, it's called the Harvard School of Public Health Healthy Eating Plate 2011. They don't ever need to redo it. Half your plate's fruit and vegetables. A quarter of your plate is whole grains like brown rice. Quarter of your plate they call healthy protein. That can be beans, peas, tofu, tempeh, lentils. It could be very lean meats and fish, but at most it's a quarter of the plate. It's not a 16-ounce porterhouse with a baked potato next to it. Drink water, not milk. Get regular fitness and use olive oil, not butter or lard. When you follow that pattern, whether you do it all plant-based or largely of plants, you've done probably the single most important thing you can do to promote your health, your mental health, your physical health, and avoiding hospitals are not fun places if you're going for your own health issues. So,
no, I think that's fascinating, and it's so simple and basic. And look at 2011 that book was written, and it still holds true today. But you hear about so many fad diets, whether it's paleo, keto, get rid of the carbs, don't eat too many carbs, and now it's all this intermittent fasting. And I know you and I spoke a few years ago about intermittent fasting, right. And some people say, well, it slows down the metabolism. Other people say no, there's autophagy or the cell renewal, et cetera, et cetera. So why don't you speak to what you believe for in all of your years of, knowledge and practice and wisdom and expertise to our viewers to say, hey, instead of obviously the plate, there's some people that say just mindful eating, be careful of what's on your plate,
Right.
but talk about those other fad diets and even, intermittent fasting.
Sure. If I were to write a book called Shut Up, Eat Your Broccoli, I'd sell 2 copies. Because how many times since you were a kid and your mother might have told you that, do you need to hear that again? The answer is always, repeatedly, because we don't do it enough. And, broccoli is only one of the joyful things. We talk about a rainbow diet, a colorful diet, white cauliflower, purple eggplant, green leafies, red tomatoes, orange cantaloupe, eat all those colors. But, that book would not do well. You write a book, The Plant Paradox, by a colleague of mine who's a cardiac surgeon, Dr. Gundry, where you create a story, and it's totally created, that I had a patient named Big Ed, and he found out when he ate beans, peas, and lentils, it caused him to gain weight and be unhealthy. And I've created a theory that will let you, feel great for the rest of your life, particularly if you wrap it around buying some vitamins that support that idea. You have to be very cautious, because I won't call the ketogenic diet a fad. We're going back to the Atkins phase of the 70s, 80s. And there actually is medical literature in the 30, 40, 50, 60s on using low carb, high fat diets in children with seizures. And, when we didn't have a lot of medicine for seizures, this would sometimes work, but there were also many side effects described. But somehow it is infiltrated without science that's supporting it to the degree that eating the Harvard School of Public Health healthy eating plate. I mean, the Mediterranean diet, thousands of studies. The DASH diet, which is basically the Mediterranean diet, eat beans, peas, lentils, cut back on red meat, butter, cheese, add in olive oil, fruits, vegetables, and grains, drink a glass of red wine. There's a version called the DASH diet, specifically for blood pressure control. It's just lower salt. There's actually a version for the brain called the MIND, the MIND diet. And that's something everybody should look at. But it's going to look like the Harvard School of Public Health Healthy Eating Plate 2011. There's so much commonality and thousands of data points. Ketogenic diet, couple dozen publications in humans that go beyond 6 or 8 weeks, maybe up to 2 years. Not always the best science with randomized. It's a way to drop weight quickly, but if you did a healthy plant-based diet, you would probably drop weight quickly. If you literally ate like the Biggest Loser show, I mean, a salad bowl the size of, your kitchen table with just balsamic vinegar and lemon juice on it, you're going to be full and you'll probably be healthy and you'll probably lose weight. The ketogenic diet can get you to the same point. If you just cut out all your white rice, white bread, white sugar, your blood sugar will improve. Same thing happens when you substitute processed fast food, grocery store food for homemade plant-based options. But the ketogenic diet, Halle Berry, Hugh Jackman, LeBron James, a lot of trainers, a lot of podcasts have just made it sexy, but the data hasn't anywhere near grown to support it. There's zero data on the ketogenic diet being safe for the heart. And when you start jacking up meats, butter, and fats, some people's cholesterol goes through the roof in just 2 months. So if you're going to do this, get your blood work done. Be sure your blood sugar, your blood cholesterol, and other things are on track. Although I would suggest you don't do this long term. Do it to get skinny for a wedding if you want, but don't do it long term, or don't do it often. Cycle it. And there are about 10 research papers. This is the last word on the ketogenic diet. That these are the kind of nutrition studies that exist. We have 240,000 people we've been following in a database. Those that described their diet low carb died earlier in follow-up than those that said they ate a moderate or high carb diet. And those are not very intelligent words, because donuts are carbs and black beans are carbs, and they both could describe high carb diets. So it's always the word refined versus whole or complex. But these 10 studies suggest you wouldn't really grab onto a diet that has this stain, this mark, that somebody needs to really disprove or give up on this fad, that it might actually put your health at risk. And probably through cardiac and cancer mechanisms. A high saturated fat diet may be promoting early brain disease, early heart disease, early cancer, but it's going to take a decade If you start eating, even if you started smoking today, you're not really probably going to see lung cancer for a decade to 2 decades. So the fact that a few weeks went by, a few months went by, when you're doing something that is not strongly supported by science is an issue. Same thing with the Paleolithic diet. We can figure out what cavemen ate 20,000 years ago. We can reproduce that and we can be healthy. Well, cavemen didn't live a very long life. We don't think they were very healthy. We can't get the same foods that they had. We don't walk around in our loincloths active all day long. There's a whole fantasy about that we're reproducing it. And you can buy paleo pancake and paleo, cookie mixes now, and pretty sure that wasn't popular in the Flintstone days. So it's a better diet than going to McDonald's, Wendy's, Arby's, Taco Bell, and Hardee's every day to eat a plate that has some meat and has some greens and has some berries and maybe has some olive oil. That's a better diet, there's no doubt. But optimal for that best health and best brain health, it's always in studies that I don't have any skin in. I just read them over and over. Plant-based, 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 plant-based shows up as the winner.
Well, Dr. Kahn, before we get into the intermittent fasting side of it, people years ago, not that long ago, actually, when the whole, discussions were being had relative to autism and, diet is such a huge factor. And was there a correlation in your mind with the poor American diet and the rise of autism in children?
It remains unknown what component is genetic, but genetics shouldn't have changed in a couple generations, of course. And it does appear either we're diagnosing it more readily and these children existed, but we just didn't call them autism, or it's more frequent. A number of people raised the question about the food additives, food preservatives, dyes, herbicides, and really Roundup, glyphosate, the Monsanto Bayer product that just led to a $10 billion class action settlement in the news in the last week or so. That there may be a connection with, we have labels now, organic, non-GMO. Roundup was introduced in 1995 and became popular about 5 years later, with many foods being genetically modified, a lot of Roundup being sprayed in farms all over the United States. There's a theory and some support that it's very disruptive to the health of our GI tract, and children eating food tainted with Roundup. I mean, they're eating a Triscuit whole wheat cracker. Well, it's possible are suffering exposure to toxins because they're under attack from these chemicals. That is a theory. I'm not creating and fomenting issues that don't exist, but the purity of the diet may have really degraded recently. So that's concerning. Yeah, but there is actually a correlation. There's a very famous statement, correlation doesn't prove causation. But the use of Roundup in the United States and the diagnosis of children with autism, it's almost overlaid 1-to-1 on top of each other. It's provocative. And when you can buy organic, when you can grow your own, when a farmer or a market that, you got some reason to believe, at least during the summer months in Michigan, you can ask the question, do you use Roundup at your farm? If the answer is yes, go to the next stall.
Right. I know we talked a little bit about, the different diets, and we touched on the intermittent fasting. Can you speak to our viewers about what your opinion is? Do you need us? You can take a minute to take a sip.
That's right. It's a fascinating topic, and I'll bring you right up to it. But there has been now about 30 years, maybe a little more, of animal studies. I don't love animal studies, but we do learn from them. If you have 2 cages of mice, and one you let it eat as much as it wants, and one you restrict the number of calories the mice are allowed to eat every day, or at least some days. Typically, the mice in the cage where they're not allowed free access to food look better, are healthier, and actually live longer. And you can do that. It's been done with apes. It's been done with yeast. It's been done with earthworms. So the idea that something called CR, calorie restriction, it certainly matters what you're eating. It matters how often you're eating, but actually the total volume of calories you eat may be related to aging. Out of that came a lot of research that there are actually pathways inside of us. If we will take a break by eating less or maybe not eating for periods of time, we have mechanisms to turn on in our body. You use the word autophagy, the ability to clean, renew, restore, repair. Won the Nobel Prize in Medicine, this whole concept, about 4 years ago, a Japanese scientist of great renown. But when you eat 3 meals a day, or you're at a trainer who tells you eat 6 small meals a day, you're never going to expose your body to the stress of being a little hungry and unlock these pathways. Pathways that are believed may actually repair damaged tissues and may allow us to live healthier lives long term. At least in every animal model, and very suggestive, we have the same pathways in humans. So, a day a week doing green juice or water, if you're healthy, if you're a type 1 diabetic or frail or sick, you're not going to do this. Might be a little step forward. A lot of people now are doing something officially called TRE, time restricted eating. My dinner's over by 6:30 p.m. and I don't eat again till 8 a.m., 10 a.m., 11 a.m., 12 noon. If you can, may be effective at, sort of tweaking the system a little bit towards this self-renewal, self-repair, helps with weight control. There is still a legitimate debate if skipping breakfast is actually the healthiest choice for heart disease or not. If skipping versus a bowl of oatmeal, walnuts, and blueberries, you'll find scientists on both sides of the equation and data on both sides of the equation. Finally, the person that I admire the most in this field is a scientist in Los Angeles, Dr. Walter Longo. And I'd urge anybody, read every book I wrote, but he's got a book called The Longevity Diet in 2018. And it's phenomenally interesting. And he is the premier scientist, maybe in the world, on fasting, the health implications, how to do it. And he has a product where you eat 5 days, 800 calories a day that I use with my patients, and it's called Prolon, Prolon, that actually has science. This isn't just another TV celebrity telling you to, get a can and with a shake. This is randomized science. So the point is, you might want to hack into or take advantage of a series of systems we all have by either extending the amount of time you don't eat. The worst pattern is probably 6 a.m. you're eating and 11 p.m. you're still munching on something. Your body needs some period to repair, replace, and get ready for the next day, or maybe extend it a little bit. There are people that do 3, 4, 5 day water fast. It's extreme. You're never going to be If I can't get people to eat broccoli, I'm certainly not going to get them to do a 5 day water fast. That's why the pre-made scientific program that we use in my clinic, the Prolon, is a nice scientific proof. Just to bring this conversation up right to the end, just in the last 10 days, in a major respected medical journal, Dr. Longo and colleagues published the first breakthrough human study. Can you use fasting to actually improve the outcome of a disease? Provocative idea. So they had nearly 200 women, unfortunately, with breast cancer getting chemotherapy. These were patients in the Netherlands, but Dr. Longo was part of he was the originator of the idea. And while they were getting chemotherapy for those 4 days, they followed this Prolon fasting mimicking diet. No sugar in it, plant-based, non-GMO, gluten-free, whole foods, very low calorie. They actually did better with chemo and had more of a response to chemo than just getting chemo. So this idea of using autophagy and using fasting has now broken into the clinical realm. No, we don't have this as physicians to offer in the United States yet, and I'm not an oncologist, but it certainly has helped to seal the deal that this is real therapy, to look at your food as medicine, as Hippocrates said, 2,500 years ago.
That is amazing, Dr. Kahn.
Amazing. Yeah.
Thought the Prolon diet, which, like you said, is under that, the restricted diet for 5 days, it's, mimics that fasting. Who would have thought that would help cancer patients going through chemotherapy? That's amazing.
The idea, just so you know, it's called differential stress response. When you eat less, they tried to do it, just have these women fast, but it's very stressful and it's not comfortable, and you're already feeling bad getting chemo. It's nice to have something to eat. But healthy cells go into a bit of a rest dormant period if they're stressed by low calories. Cancer cells say, I don't give a crap, I'm a cancer cell. And they just keep replicating. So the chemo goes to the cancer cells. Our healthy cells don't take up the chemo agent to the full degree. So get less side effects, and more chemo where you want it. It's amazing, simple play, but it's took 30 years of research to, figure this stuff out.
Do you yourself practice any kind of special, like the intermittent fasting, or I know we talked about your being a vegan,
yeah.
so.
Yeah, I've done Prolon, a dozen times over the last few years. Enjoy it. And I typically will go 14 hours between meals, maybe 8 p.m. to 10 a.m. the next morning. I'm not a big breakfast eater on the run.
Yeah, you're quite busy. Speaking of being busy, you've written so many books. Can you talk to us and our viewers about your latest book that's going to be soon to be published?
Well, actually, you're so energetic. I just got it published in time for this live broadcast. Now, it was published in March, and I'd love to talk about it for about 3 minutes. First, you got to try and pronounce the title. It's officially called Lipoprotein A, the Heart's Quiet Killer. But, you could look at it and say, what the heck is that word? Turns out, you want to avoid heart disease, we talked, but the big scientific factors ask the question. You go see a cardiologist, he's going to ask you, do you have high blood pressure? Do you have high cholesterol? Do you have high blood sugar? Do you smoke? And does mom, dad, brother, sister, aunt, uncle, grandparents have early heart attacks, early strokes? 5 big, they're called Framingham risk factors. Well, it turns out that those are important to determine for yourself, important to determine, as a doctor with a patient. I'm off track, but here, I have it here. I know you guys are saying he's way ADD. Even the American Heart Association has something called the Simple 7. Just to go look it up online. They suggest, what you're smoking like, what your weight's like, what's your physical activity like, what's your diet, your blood pressure, your cholesterol, your blood sugar. These are simple ways to get a little bit of an assessment of your risk of developing clogged arteries through your body, heart attacks, and strokes. They do not in any way identify everybody who might be at risk for heart attack, stroke. In the men, erectile dysfunction, a big problem that is related to blood supply predominantly. So it turns out there is a cholesterol in the blood of 90 million Americans, 1 out of every 4, that you inherit from your parents. But you've never heard of it. And it's not on your routine blood work at your primary care doc. It has not been added to the panel. It was discovered 57 years ago. It's been available in labs like Quest, LabCorp, major hospitals for way over a decade. But doctors have not been instructed about the implications. If you inherit this cholesterol from mom, dad, or the worst would be to inherit from both, we know exactly which gene on which chromosome. The science is very strong. You might be 4 times the risk during your life of having a stroke, a heart attack, and actually a heart valve problem. And it actually creates a big proportion of heart surgery, stents, angioplasty, and deaths that are occurring. But we're not checking it. And one of the reasons we're not checking it, it's debatable if you were, to have yours done and it's elevated, which is 1 out of every 4. It's a very common problem. What do you do about it? So there's 2 things you can do about it. It's a simple blood test. You could go next week to your internal medicine doctor, family doctor, gynecologist. You can just send your blood off. You can come to my clinic in Bingham Farms. If I tell you that you inherited it and your blood level's sky high, what we know for sure is you should really pay attention to all the other factors, the exercise, the diet, the blood pressure. Get those really well controlled. The popular drug Lipitor, Zocor, Crestor, statins, not only do they not lower this kind of cholesterol, they sometimes even raise it, which is concerning if you know you have it. There is a over-the-counter B vitamin called niacin, which can be used with somebody with experience to lower this. There's a very expensive injectable cholesterol drug that's available that might lower it, but the FDA hasn't approved it specifically. And about 4 years ago, a drug company called Novartis, about 4 years in the future, will be coming out with the first dedicated agent. But, if you really want to have a solid picture, you don't want to go to trial and have a surprise that you didn't read, a pleading or a deposition to speak your language. I don't want to go through life not knowing that for $25, I could have had a blood test that gave me a little better foundation to self-assess my risk. And some of us need, we need a little boost to really get our lifestyle in order. So I use this in a positive way. Great news. You inherited a time bomb from your parents, but you can exercise more, eat better, sleep more, control your weight. And, you can work on these things. Lifestyle is challenging, but it's easier than surgery and medication. So,
well, again, knowledge is power,
knowledge applied is power. I agree. Totally.
Yeah. And you have your Kahn Center for Cardiac Longevity, and it's local here in Bingham Farms.
Yeah.
Now, are you still a practicing clinician, or are you now doing all preventative medicine?
I'm practicing preventative medicine, but I no longer rush to the cath lab and do procedures. I did that for 30 years. I loved it. I was, helped many people stop their heart attack. But on a personal level, it's standing under an X-ray tube every day, and I did that for 30 years. It was enough.
For sure, right.
And plus you have to wear this heavy lead protective gear, and some people don't do well with all that. I ended up with a healthy back, but you want to go out on top. So office is full, we accept new people, but it's going to be discussions. How do I get off my blood pressure pill? How do I get off my cholesterol pill? Why did I have the patient I just had, a lovely man from Brazil, who lives in Detroit now, had a heart attack 2 years ago with a stent, and at 55 he scratches his head. Nobody ever told me why I had this, and he's thin and athletic. So I love that. Let me take you apart, test you with blood work and other things, put you back together. We'll find why you had a heart attack.
Yeah, not right. My question I did not mean to infer that you're not practicing.
Oh, get it, no problem.
As a cardiologist actually doing all the surgeries.
I'm a mediator now, not a trial lawyer anymore.
Oh, okay. Exactly. It's interesting that you talk about a young person having a heart attack. We hear about that all the time. In fact, a friend of mine literally just passed last week. Very healthy man.
I heard of probably the same. Last name starts with an E.
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard. I did not know the gentleman, but that I grieve. I'm very sensitive about it, not mentioning that on social media because the family gets their time and respect. But, I have this big campaign, #test not guess. Don't guess on your health. Come see me when you're 45, 43, 48. Let's run an assessment. And so give you a 10-year view. Where do you stand? And, these simple measures like the American Heart Simple 7 are good, but you need more to really focus. I heard that. I have a Google alert on heart attacks. So I get these postings all over the world every morning. And, famous Bollywood actor, obviously in India, 39 years old, died of a heart attack 2 weeks ago. I mean, just tragic. And we should be able to do better in 2020 than that. But you got to get checked. Don't be complacent. Why do you get a colonoscopy and a mammogram and your doctor does nothing to check your heart? Now, your doctor is a good person. They're not being trained, and I am always loving to talk about this. For about $75 to $100 at our local hospitals in Detroit, you get a CAT scan of your heart. Painless, no injection, no dye. You see the bones, you see the lungs, and in the middle you see the heart. And where that yellow arrow is shows somebody's surprise. Their widowmaker heart artery is full of disease and plaque. They just learned in 5 seconds for $100 that we need to wrap around a whole lot of science, love, lifestyle, and follow-up so that they have an alert and a warning and an ability to intervene. That's called a coronary artery calcium CT scan. And St. John Beaumont, Providence, Genesis, St. Joe's, everybody offers it. It's just you don't find enough primary care doctors, what we call the mammogram of the heart. Just write you a little script. That's what we do a lot of at the clinic is get that data. I have a pre-made prescription pad that says cardiac calcium CT score because I order these at the hospital. I don't have the CT scanner, so it's the cleanest system in the world. I just want data.
So, Dr. Kahn, speaking of data and our times and during this pandemic and all the stay-home orders, what have you seen as a doctor in terms of the community at large? And have you seen an uprise in patients? Have you seen something that you think we need to know about? Do you think that we're still in a at-risk situation? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be succinct. They're wonderful questions. There's a lot to bite on there, but there clearly was an emptying out of the hospitals of not only elective procedures in April and May, but we still are puzzling. Why did 50% of the prior evaluation of stroke and heart attack patients become the norm? And it's still lower than average right now. Are people actually, unable to talk and suffering pressure in their chest and just staying at home and trying to doctor it? That's a very bad idea. Call 911, go to the hospital if you're in poor health. There are some clues, like in New York City, that people just dropping dead suddenly went up. Was that, delaying? I used to work with a TV celebrity who used to say delay, denial, death, or denial, delay, death. It's not the real deal. I'll just take some Maalox and wait. And doesn't always work out well. So, call 911 if you're in ill health. I always say, call me first, so you don't ever have to call 911, and let's check you out. Number 2, stress for sure. People are sleeping poorly. And it's interesting. Some people are coming in and said, Doc, I lost 10 pounds in the lockdown. Home cooking instead of restaurants, that can be a real bonus. Of course, if you're carrying out pepperoni pizza and all, you're not going to necessarily enjoy that. Some people, actually were working out more at home because it takes longer to go to the gym than if you happen to have a treadmill, elliptical, Nordic track, a neighborhood to walk in. Some people took this time to, I have patients that were driving 2 hours a day to work each way, and now they got 4 hours back in their life. They've used this to actually enhance their health. But, there is the flip side. Both the stress, the sleep, and the access to comfort food hasn't, helped everybody get where they should go. So, this is the perfect time to regroup if you, kind of fell apart in the last 3 months on your health program. I'm a big fan. I'm a pretty good student of the role of CBD and hemp, not marijuana, THC, for stress and sleep. And a lot of people have been using it and successfully in the last few months. And there's no addictive problem and very safe path, obviously much better than opioid, addictive pain medicines if pain is an issue. So that has gone up a little bit. Also, and finally, we don't know the ultimate program to prevent a real bad case of COVID-19 other than mask, wash your hands, physical distancing, being reasonable about all this, or even meticulous. Some would say there are some supplements along with a healthier diet, good sleep, and fitness. A little vitamin D, a little vitamin C, a little zinc, a little melatonin before bed may actually enhance your immune system during the rest of the day. So these are very inexpensive and safe, kind of supplements that might be considered. The final comment on that is, there's been a transition in how we understand COVID-19 in the really sick patient. It started off, it was a lung disease, ventilators, we need ventilators, and we do in some. But, we also learned if you're on a ventilator, God, the mortality rate is awesomely, disappointing. So it's transitioning now that it may be also a cardiac disease. Our blood vessels may be getting damaged by this virus, which is why there's clots. People have strokes and pulmonary embolisms, and there's a Broadway actor in LA, sadly, who lost a leg to a blood clot, Nick Cordero, who's still struggling for his life. So there's a new mantra, you want to not have a bad case of COVID-19, you want really healthy arteries. Well, we've just spent the last hour talking about how to get really healthy arteries, Harvard School of Public Health and other data points. So this is a really good time not to reach for pepperoni pizza.
So are you saying those with less healthy arteries are more at risk for getting COVID-19?
At least the more advanced cases with the clotting disorder, yes. Anybody can look up. There's actually a bunch of articles written, is COVID-19 a vascular disease? We weren't talking about that in February and March, but
right. No.
We're using blood thinners that we use in strokes and heart attacks now, very routinely in COVID-19. It's kind of a new paradigm.
So the discussion with the disease itself, as it's changed and evolved, and first the CDC came out and said, oh, it's it will last on countertops for days, and now they're saying no, that's not really the case. And right. As it's changed and evolved, so too has any kind of hope for an immunization, right? Do you see that in our future in the next 6 to 12 months?
Yeah, I think there'll be a vaccine in the next 6 to 12 months. I'm very concerned about the numbers we're seeing in Florida, Texas, California. But the headlines are grabbing case volume, very important, but case volume is also dependent on how many testing we have. We have much more testing now. The death rate, knock on wood, the last 2 to 3 weeks in the United States is very low. It's the lowest it's been since March. 250, 350 people a day, not the 1,500 to 2,000 that were occurring in April. Now, maybe 2 weeks from now, we're going to see that number rise. I sure hope not. I think 2 days ago in Michigan, 4 people died of COVID. I'm quoting a radio announcer. I didn't verify that. That's 4 too many, but it's not like it was where in just the Beaumont Hospital system, we had many multiples of that every day a little bit ago. So, unfortunately, some of the most vulnerable elderly people in, nursing home situations saw this decimate and in many cases lose life. Maybe that highest risk group has already experienced it. And it seems to be it's some younger people that are, experiencing it now, probably people at bars, beaches, and gatherings. And hopefully they'll make it through and will confirm that for most, this is not a high fatality illness. It certainly seems not to be a high fatality illness.
But Dr. Kahn, those fatality numbers, those, are those truly the deaths as a result of COVID-19, or was it really an underlying condition and they just so happened to test them and they tested positive for COVID-19? I heard someone locally getting into a really bad car accident, and it was really the car accident that caused the death. But at the same time, he did test positive for COVID-19.
Yeah, there's a meme of a guy under a steamroller flattened, death due to COVID-19. It's, some of the humor that popped up. I don't know. There's conspiracies that hospitals will be reimbursed more with a COVID-19 death diagnosis. I hope we're not, seeing other than appropriate coding and death certificates. It's hard sometimes to know what to put on death certificates, but at least the numbers are low, and whether they're spot on or not, I can't verify for sure.
Yeah, it's all so tricky, we're just not there. We don't know. I
agree.
What about the link between your gut health and your heart health? We see a lot about that now, and all of these probiotics and prebiotics and all of that. Yeah. What is your opinion about that?
Yeah, it's a burgeoning field. In my 30 plus years of cardiology, that was never a topic, and now it is a growth area. We have to understand, and just in general, if you think about it, the tube starts here, and everybody can imagine where the tube ends. We are familiar with that part of our body, and it's literally just a tube that's outside our body, if you think about it, and it's a hose outside our body that has the important job of allowing what gets in, and preventing some and allowing some in. And the quality of what you put in as it travels through your small intestines, your colon, and out, is very important. We talked about Roundup, glyphosates, pesticides, herbicides, pepperoni pizza. We know that when you have a big, rich meal, fettuccine Alfredo and a cappuccino with all kinds of cream and pepperoni pizza, saturated fat content off the roof, that within an hour or two, you can measure toxins in your blood. That if it happened to be a grilled salmon and a piece of salad with a bowl of salad with balsamic and a nice sweet potato and all, that same thing doesn't happen. These are scientific studies. We also know, and that's a gut health that ultimately determines your heart health very rapidly. One rich meal in butter, cheese, and meat will decrease your cognitive function for a few hours, according to a study in healthy women just a couple of weeks ago. When the same meal, same calories, but it doesn't have the butter and the lard, it has a healthy vegetable oil like extra virgin olive oil, didn't do the same thing. So, walking into a courtroom or a mediation or something like that after a big, kind of traditional steak and potatoes lunch of some sort, or worse, fast food, actually can alter your ability to be sharp and on your game. So that's a gut, heart, gut, brain, gut overall health relationship. We don't know the optimal probiotic. I mean, the optimal probiotic are fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and beans and peas and lentils that provide the fiber that our bacteria love to eat. Our bacteria love healthy plant-based fiber, and they will create chemicals when they are fed fiber, which fiber is not in chicken or turkey or pork or beef, it's in plants. But these little bacteria will take the fiber and create short chain fatty acids. It's a little too chemistry, and you'll benefit from that. You'll have a healthy colony of bacteria. And the answer probably isn't a probiotic, although there are some really good ones out there. The answer is quality of your diet, colors in your diet, fiber in your diet.
Back to the
sign off in a couple of minutes to get back to.
I know you do, and I just wanted to say thank you again. I know that you do provide men's sexual health services. You provide a lot of different things. I was going to ask you one other question about that.
Well, go for it. We'll do that one. That's so much.
What should men over 50 or 60 do to help their sexual health?
Yeah. So, most important message everybody listen to: an early warning sign that you're on the road to a heart attack, a stent, a bypass, or death is developing erectile dysfunction. It's usually a vascular problem, and it usually shows up before heart symptoms show up. So if you're having erectile dysfunction, 50% of men at age 50, very common, 60% of men at age 60, don't just go to your doctor and say, I want the blue pill. You want to say, I want complete lab work, check my blood pressure, and I want that heart CT scan to make sure I'm not walking around with the Widowmaker time bomb, because that's really the message. We should be able to maintain our sexual abilities, men and women, long in life, but vascular problems are the single biggest reason we don't. And then they will also often respond by reevaluating your lifestyle, as we've talked extensively. And as long as you know your heart's okay, then those prescription drugs are a safer choice. But you're not reversing the problem with Viagra and Cialis. You're reversing the problem when you put on your gym shoes. You don't stop at the pizza place in the corner, and instead you make healthy meals at home.
Right. Well, Dr. Kahn, thank you so much for being with us today. Where can our viewers find you if they need anything? Please give us your information, if you will.
Oh, what the heck? You're being so kind. Yeah, I have a clinic at 13 and Telegraph. You can see the name Kahn, Center for Cardiac Longevity, and website drjoelkahn.com, drjoelkahn.com, and a great staff. It's a small boutique clinic. We take a lot of care. You never wait. You're always right in to see me, and we pride ourselves in being a little different and a little bit more user-friendly.
And is your restaurant open?
Yeah, 14 of Woodward, green space and go. I'm going to have to hire you. But yes, it's open for carry-out, delivery, and high-quality, healthy food for sure.
And there you have it. Thank you so much, Dr. Kahn. I'm so grateful that you're with us.
You're best. Have a healthy day.
Thank you. You too. And everybody, thank you so much for being with the Cronin Law Firm. And I'm so happy that you were able to join us today. The Cronin Challenge2Change. What an amazing guest, Dr. Kahn. He has done so much in his life, just affecting and changing and improving people's lives left and right. And that's what I'm hoping to do for you in a little bit every week, time and time out, just trying to show you that we're here, we care, I care. I care to make a difference in this world, each one individual person at a time. So please like our page, like the Cronin Law Firm page, go on our YouTube channel and like that, where I will be uploading content regularly. Thank you so much for watching our Cronin Challenge2Change. Stay well, keep your spirits high, be healthy, be mindful, and live your best life. Talk to you soon.